Now that's real. Welcome back to Real Faith Conversations, and in this show we try to talk about life, culture, and faith in the most genuine way possible. My name is Ryan Morris, and I'm here with Greg Newell, a parishioner at St. Peter, who has been through a lot of challenges in life, but has always kept his faith in God. Today he's going to be talking about how he shares his faith with others, even when the craziest of things in life hits. Greg, welcome to the podcast.
Thrilled to be here. This is great. I never knew that I get a chance to be on your show, Ryan. So I'm really excited. It's fun to have the opportunity to share.
I'm always excited to have new people come onto the podcast. And when you approached me in the narthex, I was like, yes, another new guy. We can bring him on. And today's going to be an interesting discussion about, faith, your journey, but also how you share your faith in the most unique ways in suffering, right? And you have so many examples of that. And so how is... the first question that always comes to mind, because you're a practicing Catholic, you're a devout Catholic, and your family history has been always Catholic, but is being the practicing Catholic enough, right? That's always the question people ask. Is going to church every Sunday, going and fulfilling the obligations of holy days, is that enough?
Well, I love joking with Father because he's just an amazing man. And if I asked him, hey, Father, I'm doing all this stuff, I'm checking off those boxes, does that work? You know the look he would give me and say, nice try, Greg, but we're going to have to work at this a little bit more. That was good back in the 60s and 70s when you were going to Catholic grade school and everything, but the world's changing. And I'm joking with Father, I think the whole Catholic community is changing and coming to recognize more and more that there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
Well, that's really important, and it's a key to developing my faith. Jesus asked for more. I may not have wanted to hear that before, but he really did. And I think over time, we as a community are learning how to come to grips with that concept globally, at the local level, at the parish, and individually, certainly myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and off camera, before the podcast, you explained a lot of things that you're going through personally throughout your life. Can you explain some of those to give the audience some context?
Sure. It seems like the last 6 or 7 years have lots of complexity to it. It's been a very challenging journey for my wife, Kathy. She's been diagnosed 4 times with cancer, and very significant stuff along the way. Completely came out of the blue. It was really stunning to us, and it's been an emotional ride. I'm blessed that she's a deep faith person, and candidly, her journey and the way she's approached her journey has helped to build my faith and actually allow me to part of this discussion today is how she's inspired me. I'm a very active person, so I have a lot of injuries, but I blame that. That's just my stupidity. People should tell me I should grow up and stop doing that. But recently I had a terrible case of sciatica attack to find out that I had a herniated disc. And I've been in pretty severe pain for 8.5 weeks.
Wow.
And it has been debilitating. I own my own business, and I've been in the office only 5 days because I physically couldn't get in the office and stay there type of deal. And I've never gone through that experience. I've been healthy other than, as I jokingly said, the stuff that's self-inflicted with my activities. When you're in relentless pain, it really changes things. And when there's not an obvious, and they literally over that 8-week period, and even now, because my foot still throbs, even after surgery is successful, but even after that, when you don't have an immediate resolution, then you don't have a lot of options. So where do you turn? And so I was given the opportunity, and using that opportunity to say, God, hey, can you help me? And what does that help look like along the way? So that's been very transformative. We've also had exposure within the general family of the ups and downs, the challenges that go with alcoholism and addiction, and the painfulness that goes on with that. And I've been involved with some support groups since, and I see that pain every day in really close friends or people who have become close friends. And so there's a lot of these moments over the last 5 to 7 years that have really had a direct and significant impact on where I am in life. What does it mean? And what can I do about it?
Yeah. And talking about suffering in relation to your faith, how does that play into your faith journey? How does it impact your faith, both positive and negative? I'm sure there's a lot of stuff there on both ends. How does that work?
There's so many ways to angles to look at it. In a big thing, look at all the suffering Jesus did for me. Wow. And I say me personally, because Jesus said he came for everybody. So there's that sits out there. But I made a big leap. So let's go backwards to it. Is the journey has taken me, and we'll talk about it in a little more detail, was and the opening question, God actually uses these things as tools to other things. And the more I'm connected to my faith, the more I have a belief that Jesus and God has a plan for me, the more I question, so what is it when those things happen? And why have they come into my life? And prayer is such an important part of what we do. But prayer is more than just saying the Hail Marys, and I'm a rosary warrior. My mom was a convert, and man, she prayed. She had 6 boys, so she was praying the rosary all day, every day.
Wow!
But she taught me the importance of the rosary. Well, there's saying the rosary, and then there's meaning the rosary, if that makes sense. And so when you have these challenges, whether they're internal to, when I say internal, to immediately to my family or to me personally, or to my bigger family or to my friends, there's something about getting older that you have problems with these illnesses or whatever, that you begin to look at prayer as more than a sort of base process. It's a much deeper thing. And so what are those sufferings done? And I will tell you that I can't believe how intense my prayers have gotten. Yesterday was just a terrible, Saturday and Sunday were a terrible day of pain. And yet I felt as close to God as I've had at any time. As I was praying, and we talked off the air about what do I listen to, what are the things I do now. And so I was just listening to Christian music. I was listening to inspirational stuff. I was listening to The Chosen, to use them as vehicles to help me deal with this suffering.
Yeah.
And it was crazy how deep it was.
Yeah, it's amazing how suffering can actually help someone get closer to God. And it seems to be true for you. And to be close to God, you almost have to build that trust up in him. So the natural question is, how do you maintain your trust in God, even in the midst of all of that pain and suffering that's going on?
I'm gonna switch it to a second to a sports analogy.
All right, that's fair.
And the great coaches who have these teams that are undefeated relentlessly coach the basics. Mm-hmm. And when things are going great is when they jump on them and they make that practice that's even harder than they can imagine. And the player's like, well, why are you doing this? Like, we're playing great. We're really good. And he said, someday you're going to hit something, a bump in the road, a player gets injured, a call doesn't go your way, the weather's bad, and were you prepared for that moment? That's what faith is.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't start getting my intensity, my prayer up when I'm hurting. I should have done that ahead of time. And through, this is where we talked about the small groups settings of connecting with prayer that we have here at the church, and we're working on mirroring your Father's messaging. It's in those groups that you connect with people who've been through that, who maybe have had the suffering already, who maybe had tougher times, who taught me about it. So I had friends that taught me to be able to listen to get the readings every day. And so then I did the readings, and then there were interpretations of that. And now Father Mike had the Bible in the ear, and then Father Mike, right, the catechism in the ear.
Yeah.
And every one of those items was building on the layer before. And so and again, even just listening to music, where I've in my pain, so I'm in the middle of the night, I can't sleep. I'm averaging about 3 hours of sleep a night, so it's not unusual for me to be up till 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Wow.
Well, I made a decision not to watch crap. And I've watched some of the scenes of The Chosen 4, 5, 6 times. And I watch how Jesus was interacting with the people. And each time I learned a little bit more. And so making sure through the time to build up along the way gave me the strength to say, hey, this has happened to lots of people. Mm-hmm. So I think one of the dangers of difficult things in life is it only happens to me. Mm-hmm. And in a way, I can't blame people for feeling that way, because it's when you're in the depths of pain and agony, sorrow's there, hurt's there. However, having learned more, reading the Bible, hearing the stories, hearing people interpret what the Bible is saying, because I can read the Bible. Listen, I'm nowhere near a Bible expert. When you hear somebody explain, well, really, this is what it was. So, Ryan, those are all things that were just building up along the way. So when the crisis hit, we were further along. Well, I should say I was further along.
So you built up the habit
Yes.
of, these vehicles where you can put your trust in the Lord, even in the midst of all that suffering and pain, so that you can know, hey, you know what? Other people throughout history have gone through a lot worse or the same,
Right.
but they still trust in the Lord.
Right.
I mean, you think about the Old Testament, right? There's so many. There's
Our
so
good
many,
buddy Job, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. Like our good buddy Job, when you think about
He's a good
suffering.
person.
Yeah. When you think about suffering, and then his friends that were like, hey, what did you do to deserve this? And he's like, no, I trust in the Lord. Right. And, yeah. So when you think about that and you think about your own life, it's like, it's hard to trust, but when you build up the habits, like you mentioned, those things, those vehicles, getting away from all the junk in the world, you can say, you know what, Lord, it's you and I trust in you.
Yeah. And I'll just finish by saying, listen, I live a full life. I play hockey. I ride horse every day. I golf. I ski.
Yeah.
I'm not a little dweeb sitting in the corner.
Yeah.
Not living a life and just cocooned myself to these things.
Yeah.
I'm not a hermit by any stretch. However, I've just been wiser with where I use my time, and when and just incorporated faith learning into it. I mean, you asked me, another thing is just simply listening to this, to hear our parishioners.
Yeah,
there's something powerful about the non-professional, the non-trained person just sharing their story, and there's so much more medium out there that allows us to do that.
Yeah. Praise God for that.
Absolutely.
I wanted to switch gears a little bit because
Okay.
you mentioned your wife, Kathy, and her struggles with cancer. I believe you said 4 times she was diagnosed with cancer. Off camera, you mentioned there was a miracle that happened.
Right.
Do you mind explaining some of that?
Sure. So Kathy was diagnosed. She had I won't get into. She had cancer on minor cancer that was found because of some other reason. But anyway, had breast cancer, had lumpectomy, all the treatment, all the stuff that went on. 1 year of horrible treatment, but she was great for 5 years. And then out of the blue, we found out in September of 21 that it had metastasized. And so it had come into the lymph nodes of her lungs, her rib, and her hip. We were devastated, completely floored, never expected it. Very emotional, challenging time. So the lymph nodes, the reason she found out about it was because the lymph nodes were swollen so much she was coughing all the time, which led to a whole sequence of events that did that. Well, and in one of those, you can't believe it, she coughed, and the cancer was so bad in her rib that it cracked.
Wow.
And so for 6 weeks, she was in sheer agony as nobody could figure out how to treat this. So finally found a pain specialist, and we went in to see this doctor. And we sat down, and I don't know how to explain it to you other than I could feel it right away. Kathy was in a lot of pain. This doctor had a presence to her of just patience and empathy.
Mm.
And she was going to allow Kathy to tell her story. And so Kathy told her story. Fast forward, I could feel something going on in the room. It's hard to explain. People who may not have faith don't know it, but I was watching Kathy physically change.
Wow.
So that was a Friday. Doctor was amazing. I will add in there because I believe that most of the stories when Jesus, when he heals, he touches somebody. The doctor reached over and touched her twice. Touched her on the arm and said, it'll be okay. I can remember like it was yesterday. Sitting in Kathy, that's a Friday. Kathy was on a medicine taken once a day called gabapentin. Doctor said you can take up to 8 of that, but we have to do that gradually. So Saturday, Kathy got up and took 1 gabapentin in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. It's all that is. It's a nerve, treats nerve pain. Doesn't do anything else, treats nerve pain. Not a narcotic or anything.
Yeah.
That Saturday night, Kathy said, I'm starting to feel better. And I'm telling you, she was agony. She couldn't do anything. She just laid on the sofa for 6 weeks. Sunday, she got up. She took the gabapentin in the morning. By the afternoon, she said she had no rib pain. Monday, the coughing stopped. Now, that medicine has nothing to do with the lungs or whatever.
Wow.
3 weeks later, the scan showed that the cancer was completely gone in her rib and her hip. The rib was completely calcified, fully healed, and the cancer in the lymph nodes was almost completely gone.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
Now, people can say what they want. I know what I saw.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing about that is that's a very deep and emotional thing. I've cried lots of times telling this story. But more important than Kathy being healed, I shouldn't say more important, the most important thing was healing it. But tangential to that was I told it everybody. And everybody I talked to, I said, it was a miracle. Mm-hmm. Now, we had many, many people cry. People who were, the family was crying, and you'd expect that.
Yeah.
But people who I consider like golfing friends, we're sitting at the bar in the golf club, and tears just streaming down the lady's eyes. Now I know her, but I had no idea. It was so impactful to her because I think she's Catholic now that I kind of pieced it together. I didn't know that at the time. And here was somebody telling her about a real life miracle. When would I had an opportunity to do that before? Mm. So God took Kathy's suffering and turned it into something that I've told hundreds of people about this. And when I do that, I say it's a miracle. I don't know what happened or whatever. I say it's a miracle. Yeah. And I simply put in there, I understand that not everybody might grasp it that way, but something special happened that way for me because I believe in God. It was a miracle.
Yeah.
So here was this terrible thing that suddenly allowed me to openly share my faith with everybody. I didn't care who it was. For a year and a half, I've told this story.
Wow.
Just learning to God has his ways. And, Kathy's story of how she's handled this journey would be, I'd love to have her come on.
We should get her to come on.
Because her journey of how she's treated this and turned her healing over to God. She's 100%. That's God's deal. I'm doing that. And my job is every day to help somebody. She prays every day that God will teach her how to help somebody for as long as she lives on this earth. And she doesn't know with cancer because cancer came back again. It metastasized to her brain. Now, the good thing they caught it again. But it'd be a wonderful story. But there's no doubt in my mind that suffering is often the greatest way to share our faith.
For sure. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. Truly. And I would love to have her on to talk more about that story. And it's so powerful to see people's testimonies in the midst of suffering.
Right.
And it makes me think, like, how do you then form the habits to then ask people to pray for you or even pray for other people? Because, I mean, a lot of times families in this parish, something tragic happens and we ask them, what do you need? A lot of times they just say, we just need your prayers. And I know the world loves to like dismiss that, be like, oh, okay, it just gives you a little peace of mind. But what you're saying, and what so many other people are saying, is that prayer is powerful. Prayer is powerful. And for me, if you're anything like me, I often forget to bring that element into the conversation, to be honest.
Right.
Like I work for the
Yeah.
church. I live and breathe my faith every day. Try to advance the mission of the church. But when I'm out in public and someone tells me, hey, my grandfather's doing this, I often forget to say, hey, what's the name? Can I pray for them
Yes.
right now? Can I pray with you right now? So what would you say to that?
I'm in the same boat as you.
It's hard.
And like, I joking with Father the other day. I think I've missed the number of required masses I've missed may not. It's certainly on one hand type of deal. So that this is like an not obsession, but a commitment that I've made.
Yeah.
And yet, somehow along the way, I kind of missed that component of it.
Mm-hmm.
It starts by accepting the idea that my faith formation is more than going to church on Sunday.
Yes.
And so clearly, listen, I'm blessed to be in a parish that accepts that as the mantra. And so we have many opportunities here to learn to do that. I will tell you another thing was amazingly powerful. A really good friend of mine, so here's the suffering. He had lost his wife to cancer and started a nonprofit that benefits, it's staggering, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families benefit every year from this. And he invited me to what they call a gospel reflection group. Like out of the blue, this is where he was more confident in his faith. He handed this book, said on Friday mornings, there's a gospel reflection group out of Chester. It's an amazing group of people. Mm-hmm. It's an hour and a half or an hour. It's about an hour, really. I shouldn't say an hour and a half. And it was there that I hear these people. Listen, sorry, gang. Hear these wonderful, in this particular case, it's all men. And there's about 100 men between what's live, what's in person, and what's on the phone. And what I call courage, that they don't call courage, is just, that's just kind of the nature. They're giving back through prayer. Mm-hmm. And how often they talked about saying, I'll pray for you, will you pray for me, type of deal. And so I think participating, and there's so many, again, because of technology we talked about here, I can't get down to Chester, but every Friday morning I'm listening to this. And so I think, Brian, that it's reading stuff, listening to stuff. It's intentionally focusing on, coming in here on a Tuesday night and hear the way that people pray. And my gal Shooter reads off every service person's name. No, every sick person. They may say the service person's as well. Yeah. And then suddenly begin to realize that prayer is a very personal thing, and that it's so helpful. But I can't tell you, for Kathy and I, the impact of people saying they'll pray for us, and then me learning to be able to say to somebody who's doing that. I have people who are not Catholic, who are maybe not even Christian, who are not quite sure how to react when I tell them I will pray for them, or that their son or daughter is serving in the military. Yeah. And I say, what's their name? I'll pray for them every day. And the person, I don't know whether the person's, I don't think they were a non-believer in the sense they don't believe in God, but they were clearly not a practicing in whatever faith they had, the base they were growing up. And you could just see the reaction. And they were trying to process that I would be courageous enough to say, I'll pray for you. I was at a golf setting. I was about to head out on the first tee, and I asked how he's doing. He said, well, just know I pray for your son every day. It's not as quirky as it sounds. Yeah. I get that it'll take practice. Mm-hmm. But one of the most powerful things you can do is pray for somebody. I'll share just real quick, if it's all right. 2 weeks ago, I was in here and I was getting close to my surgery for my back. And I sing in the choir, and when we were done, Nick, the choir director, said, would you mind if I pray over you? We pray over you. So we had the 20 people or whatever it is standing over me and pray for me. I get chills up. I'm working hard not to cry because
Yeah.
it was that emotional.
Yeah.
The power of that moment is indescribable.
Wow.
I've had times where I shared stories where we're heading out of church and Ken Slavic stands back there and just an amazing faith person and how he's open with it. And we ask how we're doing. We'll say something. He says, well, can I pray over you? It's like, wow. I'm forever indebted to Ken for doing that. Am I quite ready to do that? I got to work on a little bit. Probably if finding the right situation, but I'm getting really close.
Yeah.
And I want to learn how to see in the back of the church. So when I'm leaving church, who stayed in the pew and who's in pain? Because what would it mean to him if I went over to him and just say, can I just say a prayer for you?
Yeah. A simple gesture, but it goes a long way.
It's the power of people telling me to pray for, and it's shocking the number of people who prayed for Kathy and I is like off the charts. And it goes exponential because we call our prayer warriors and our prayer warriors have their prayer warriors. And I was joking on Saturday. It's like, I can't even begin to comprehend how many people are praying for Kathy. Hundreds and hundreds. That she has no idea they're doing it. But the comfort that she knows that there are people praying for is amazing.
Yeah. Praise God for prayer.
Absolutely.
And praise God for these communities of
Yes.
people that are willing to do it.
Yes.
Amazing. As we wrap up here, what kind of advice would you give to folks that are going through suffering right now? They're kind of lost. Maybe they're like a little hopeless. What kind of advice would you give them?
So the interesting thing is, I talked early on, and I'll bring all the way back to the beginning about Father talking about evangelization and missionary disciples, and what did that look like? And I thought about it long and hard. I joked I was on parish council when this first started. I'm like, when Father was visiting saying I'm going to go visit up the people in the mobile home parks up in Honeybrook and stuff. It's like, oh, maybe I won't show up at that meeting so they won't get asked to do that type of deal. Sorry, Father. Because I was terrified because that's not me. I don't know how to do that. I can't be that missionary disciple. And yet God kept working, my Father kept working, with his sermons and all that stuff. Is no, I'm calling you. Let's trust me that I will put you somewhere where this will work. So I kept thinking about that. As it turns out, these suffering moments put all that in there. I jokingly, and not jokingly, it was funny. I got the courage last week. I was getting ready. We had a Zoom meeting or whatever with all my staff. And I said, listen, I'm going into surgery or whatever. And I said, I really appreciate it if everybody would pray for me. I've owned that business for 31 years. That's the first time I ever asked somebody to pray for me. And it's because I was going into surgery.
Yeah.
And so I'll wrap it up by saying, I get that, but that's taken me a while. And so what I've learned is to say to my own family, I'll pray for you. So we're sending texts all the time now to my kids, my new daughter-in-law. We're always saying, hey, can you pray for this and pray for that? That's not where we were. We didn't do it as frequently. When it was really bad, now it's, hey, somebody's taking it, whatever. We just become much more in tune. As soon as there's any stress, stop and pray. So start with your immediate family. I shouldn't say that. That's what I did. I shouldn't shoot anybody.
What works for you?
Yeah, right. What works for me, as I started with my own family, my immediate family. Then I come from a big family, as I alluded to earlier. So I started asking not only my brothers, but my sisters-in-law, who are actually crazy prayer warriors. Like, they're the best. I'm so blessed with great sisters-in-laws. And then my high school friends, who I've been close with forever, and ask them to pray. And then I find out they're warriors. Their wives are prayer warriors. And it's just slowly but surely. And then you realize who are the people work that that might go to church. And so you begin to get comfortable. Hey, do me a favor, pray for up. And I say me all this time, much more of praying for you as soon as I hear anything. And it's just gone from there. And incrementally doing it. It is important to do all those faith building things that give you the confidence to do that. And so being more committed to a daily basis of whatever it works best for somebody. You can read devotionals, you can read books, you can listen to stuff. I've become much more into a listening mode and now a visual mode. They've helped me, those things have helped me to be more comfortable with that. I don't know where I'll be this time next year, but I've become more comfortable saying, God will help me get there. So in the end, it's all about learning to trust God that he will be with me so I know what to say in that moment.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being a witness on how to trust even in the moments of despair and suffering, but also forming those habits to maintain that so that you're always in tune with how God is calling you in that moment, but also for your courage. Thank you for your courage in saying yes to praying for people and also asking people to pray for you. Because a lot of times, as you mentioned, it's an opportunity to evangelize when you just ask, hey, can you pray for me? Or, hey, I know that your family member was going through this. I'll pray for them. No, I pray for them every day. You never know where that will lead. So thank you again. Thanks for coming on. I'd love to have you on again. And of course, maybe ask your wife if she wants to come on and share her story.
I would love to do that. This has been such a joy to me. I can't tell you how much. Again, this is all part of that next phase that God's leading me to stuff. So thanks, Ryan. God bless you and our whole parish.
God bless you, and God bless everyone else listening. Thank you.